Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Round 7 review podcast. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a podcast, YouTube channel, Twitter account and website bringing you the best in rugby predictions and opinion. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcasting app and obviously give us a 5-star review there as well, please. Other stars are available, but why would you want to? If you'd like to watch what happens behind the covers, this show's live on YouTube at 8 p.m. every Monday night. And joining me this week, all the way from the Orient, is Herman. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Paul. How are you? You had a good Easter so far?
Oh, absolutely. 4 days off work is means there's plenty of time to watch rugby and do rugby reactions to games, which obviously is much more fun than project managing. So yeah. There we go.
No, I have similar story. I also have a whole Easter off, and I managed to watch 10 games.
Oh my word!
Yeah. I almost feel like, what kind of life am I living here?
Jeez, I thought I was bad watching 6 games in their entire 5 live, 1 on record, plus watching highlights of various European Champions Cup and some of it live as well. That was just a lot of rugby to be watching. But yes. So good evening, Andre, who's there on the chat. Great to see you yet again. And the first game of the weekend was the Chiefs versus the Highlanders. The Highlanders lost Sopoaga early doors, and I thought that could have been the end of them. But Fletcher Smith, someone I don't know that much of, stepped up and played very well.
I never heard of Fletcher Smith before, to be honest, but I thought it almost seemed seamless for him to slot in there. I didn't think. Obviously, we can't know if he would have been even better with Sopoaga, but I thought he did really, really good. So. Maybe, but what do you reckon? It should probably quite easy to play together with Aaron Smith too.
Admittedly, having the world's best scrum half feeding of the ball and taking some of the weight off your shoulders is always going to help. But he did, yes. For me, the fact that Fletcher Smith can kick off both feet very well meant that he could take the pressure well, and he can choose which foot was best when trying to kick exits out of the 22 from that point of view. So I was very impressed by his the first time I've seen him, or I remember seeing him play in that sort of position. And it's interesting seeing the young players like him, and also Falcon, who we've seen play for the Chiefs when DMAC was had to move to fullback. So it's clearly the next generation of fly halves are there waiting in the wings, and players like a Terry Black, Ahaya West. Maybe their days are already numbered.
Yeah, but what else is new? That new talent is coming through in New Zealand. That seems to be one of the certains in life. Death, tax, new talent from New Zealand.
That's very true. There is that element. So the Chiefs in this one had all the territory and possession, but we're just turning the ball over far too often. We're kicking sticks, which I thought was a theme of this weekend. That a lot of the teams were kicking sticks rather than
except one team.
Go on then, which rather than going for the corner, and that was the Highlanders were the team that weren't kicking sticks.
Oh, Crusaders.
Oh, Crusaders. Sorry,
we were actually flirting with disaster, but we come to that later.
We'll come to that later. Yes, yeah. But it was interesting that from a big theme of last year. And the theme of this season up until now has been the teams haven't been kicking sticks, but all of a sudden they seem to have decided that getting the scoreboard ticking over is important.
Yeah, but as you said, and we talked about this before, and especially when in the Kiwi derbies, I have this theory that they are just too close, So you will take the points when they are on offer, and probably I would be interested to see some in-depth stats from the last couple of seasons if they. Probably could be a thing like that the coaches have been looking at, basically coming to the conclusion that if you kick for the sticks in these tight games, you will get the rewards in the end. Because it's a clear change of trend. It's a clear change of trend here.
This definitely it'll be interesting whether it continues from this weekend or whether it was just a one-off this weekend, because as I said, it happened across a lot of games this weekend.
Oh, we have talked about it before. You have brought up stats about this before too.
Yes, but this is this weekend we had teams like the Sharks who had the game in the bag, sealed and dusted, were still kicking sticks, which was a big surprise to me. But as you say, we'll get onto that later.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the Chiefs were playing a very narrow game, using their forwards until they got under advantage, and then when they got under advantage, they would try something different and actually risk something and get the rewards for it. But until then, they played very risk-free rugby. I felt this on Friday night.
Yeah, I made a comment on a rugby forum that like up till just before halftime, I was almost like thinking that the Chiefs looked like a Northern Hemisphere team on a bad day, just can't score a try, just go on with the faces, but nothing happens. But then was it just before halftime they scored this beautiful try. It was like a carbon copy of the first try in the third Lions test when Jordy Barrett feeded Duampe. You remember?
But this is the I can't remember that one off my head. But they were under advantage when they went for that went for that try, and they got it as soon as they actually risked things. And Andre's saying here that risk and reward percentage rate for scoring a try is not that great so far from lineouts, and maybe the Maul defence has improved. The Chiefs didn't even seem to want to chance their arm away from that as well. The Highlanders, in contrast, had a rare kick in front, actually kicks the corners. And so they didn't take the penalties straight away. They did later on, but in their first trip down there, they didn't try. They tried to go for the corner. As that failed, they then switched their tactics after that. And that was the first penalty for the Chiefs, and that was on 46 minutes. I mean, that's a crazy amount of time to get through the game without giving up a penalty.
Yeah. No, but the game was, for being a Kiwi derby, it was like it was not soft by any means, but it was pretty clean. It was very little niggle, and both teams seemed just to go on about their business and trust their own process without paying too much attention what the opponents were doing.
I think a lot of these players will play with each other at All Black level, so I think they all know each other, respect each other. Yes, I'm not surprised.
But come on, when Chiefs plays for Crusaders, that argument's not working.
Well, maybe true. Maybe true. But so some of those points that I want to point out: turnovers at halftime, 10 by the Chiefs, 5 by the Highlanders. But on the penalties side of things, 0 for the Chiefs, 5 for the Highlanders. So the Chiefs just turned the ball over too often, and the Highlanders just gave up too much penalties, so giving up possession and territory, which let the Chiefs get in front. Admittedly, once the Chiefs gave up that penalty on 46 minutes, they gave up 3 penalties in 3 minutes, which I think led to a talking to them very quickly.
Yeah. I remember. I thought that was a bit harsh. We got the warning right away. Okay, it was 3 goal line offenses, though. It was
3 goal line offences. The Chiefs were basically able to use. What have I done here? The Chiefs were able to use their the scoreboard pressure, and like I say, the 2 Chiefs tries both came, or 2 of the Chiefs tries both came when they had advantage. It shows that they push it when they try things. By the end of the game, a lot of those stats had evened up that I talked about before. So turnovers ended up being 15-12 and penalties 6-6, which shows you that this game swung a little bit, but the Chiefs managed to keep their necks in front.
Yeah, I think Chiefs is sitting in a pretty neat situation here. I mean, before the season started, without injuries, I predicted Chiefs going to have a little bit harder time with a new trainer and a lot of new players. And now with all these injuries, and they managed to perform, and look, they're sitting really nice in the ladder now. And also, a lot of their injured players are about to coming back now. So I'm actually very impressed and a bit surprised that the Chiefs are doing so good as they're doing. So they're like the dark horse for the title almost now, I'd say.
Wow, they are definitely dark horse. They're not the favourites by a long stretch. But yeah, as you say, it was good to see Charlie Ngatai back in this game. Yeah. Obviously, as usual, we had the usual suspects: Sam Cane, Retallick, both standing up in this game again. They always do. But as I say, it was a matter of get your neck in front and then use that to pressure the other team to have to take more risks, and it paid off.
Yeah. But I think it's kind of hard to say something like really smart what decided this game. For me, it was an extremely even game. It was in the balance to the last second, and Highlanders could easily have won this game too, and we wouldn't have made any fuss about it either. That it was like unfair or something like that. So it was a good game to watch. Good game to watch, but.
It was a good game to watch. And one of the things that came out of this one, it was that sometimes you felt that Damian McKenzie and was quite often the spark for them, but he was quite often the spark for them from a mistake. So someone would drop the ball, and it was broken play, and suddenly the defence is like, we're not quite sure what's going to happen. And that's when he was more effective. When it was an actual normal pass out to him, and the defences are set, and everything's ready to go, he didn't seem to be quite so effective. So maybe one of the tactics for them next time is to pass the ball behind him every time, make him turn around, pick it up, and then have to think on the hoof, because he seems to play better that way.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Paul. You should call Colin Cooper right away. Colin, I got it. We have a plan.
The plan is for there to be no plan. That's play off the hoof. A bit like Whose Line Is It Anyway, the comedy show where it's improvisation only.
Yeah, it's a very deceptive plan, but it might work.
So then after that, we headed over for the first Trans-Tasman derby, where the Rebels hosted the Hurricanes. The Rebels, the top side in Super Rugby, and they still are, to be fair, but they lost this one at 19-50.
Not fair, maybe.
Maybe not fair. But okay. But maybe the schedule has helped them. But I guess we sort of touched on this in the first game. But again, the Canes, the side notorious for not kicking sticks, kick sticks early, and also, I mean, they got one try, but they were just playing far too loose rugby in that first half hour.
Yeah, but I think I read a lot of comments, but this was Rebels so dominating the first 30 minutes, But you remember that try that got disallowed for Bowden Barrett? I mean, they could have swung much more earlier. I mean, much more earlier too. So I mean, yeah, Rebel looked like they were in it, but they were clearly playing like inspirational momentum rugby. But there were no structures behind it. At least, I mean, it was all Murphy. He was spectacular to watch in the first half, but when he went out of the equation, I mean, they looked completely lost. And
I'd counter and say Maffey was spectacular in the first half hour, and then was gassed and just couldn't do anything.
I have to correct here. I have to defend him. He got a serious head knock, and that's why he looked like totally out of sorts. I mean, I've seen Maffey play many times before, as you had to. He for sure had the engine to go the full 80. He's been doing it for years. So that's why he looked on the Barrett try just before halftime. You know, he looked like he had no gas, but he was head knocked there.
Yeah, perhaps he should have come off earlier. I found it very strange that he was off for HIA at the beginning of the second half, and you're like, hang on a second, he's already been off the pitch for 15 minutes. How can you have another 10 minutes of checking that he's had a head knock or not before, and then allow him back on? That's wrong. There was definitely something wrong going on there. Perhaps he should have been off earlier than he was.
I think that just desperation from the Rebels. They know they need him on the field, so they tried probably anything to get him back out there. Because without him, I mean, he is probably the best non-Kiwi player in all Super Rugby, I would say.
Oh, big call. Perhaps that's one to put out for tomorrow on the #Rugby chat. That's
good. I mean, because look at his stats, and even the last season when Rebels were absolutely dreadful, he was still playing. I mean, you really took notice of him. I understand if many of the New Zealand viewers of this show didn't watch Rebels so many times last year, but we're real tragic to watch it all. You know, no, he was a standout player.
Yeah, no, and let's hope he recovers. Well, let's hope he's given a couple of weeks off to recover, or at least a week off to recover, and then comes back. I don't like seeing players come straight back the week after they've had a head knock. Personally, I think that's the wrong approach to be taking. Andre reckons Rebels looked like a toothless shark in that game. They did after half an hour. For the first half an hour, they looked good and in it. One of the things I thought that the Hurricanes weren't doing is they were playing loose rugby when they got the balls and the offloads, which you normally expect, but there was never they were doing it quite often without ever having a ruck to set those offside lines, which meant that there were a lot of Rebels in the backfield there to intercept those balls. And a couple of times they threw the offloads, and they found that Rebels players were there legally because there had been no ruck set at all in that phase of play since when they received it. Just taking that one ruck just to get the offside line and get all the players back and out of your backfield, I think would have helped them a lot better than trying to go for it every single time. I think they were trying too hard to score too early in those opportunities.
But I also think, like, for me, it's always easy to be smart in hindsight. But I had a bit of this feeling already during the game. But it seems like as soon as the Hurricanes just settled to play more structured rugby, they're gonna win this, because to play that more like Hail Mary rugby that Melbourne Rebels tried in the beginning. I mean, you can pull it off once in a while, but it's very unlikely, and especially against a quality team like the Hurricanes. I mean,
And one of the things we don't necessarily appreciate or I'm trying the word out now, factor in for the Hurricanes. We always talk about the backs, about the free-flowing play. In this, though, perhaps the moment that turned this game was two big scrums that they had, where first off they got the scrum, made the Rebels knock on, so they got their own scrum, and then on their own scrum they went and scored, and suddenly they went in at half time leading 19-25 rather than being behind at half time. Yeah. Which was, I think, that was a key momentum changer at that point. Clearly, having Maffey not playing well from that area also helped, but that was a big momentum changer. In the second half, seeing the Canes still kick sticks initially was, to me, absolutely gobsmacked. I was very surprised by that.
No, I thought we took Rebels a bit serious, but like they were not going to go there and like be the fool and stumble. I heard some comments too from a mate who was at the game and met with Chris Boyd after the game and asked about this the 33-0 now, but the wins in a row for Kiwi teams against Australian teams. But this is actually something that the Kiwi teams themselves starting to like pride themselves. They like right now it's an eternal competition between the Kiwi Super Rugby teams, not to be the one dropping record, to keep it. So that's bad news for the Aussie teams, I say.
That's bad news to the Blues, isn't it? Let's be honest. Oh, well, gee, no. Anyway.
Yeah, we all know it's going to be the Blues.
It is going to be the Blues, isn't it? So, but we saw the Canes doing their typical tap and goes at penalties. That led to 2 tries, and we saw 42 unanswered points. This was domination. A couple of stats in there: 6 clean breaks for the Rebels that were probably all in the first half hour. 20 clean breaks for the Hurricanes. On the tackling stats, the Rebels were at 68%, whereas the Hurricanes were at 82%. And that's one of the things another one of those things that we need to appreciate about the Hurricanes is their defence and is their forward pack in this game. It's very easy to talk about Ben Lamb and 4 tries. It's watching Sevilla with mind willing, body unable to do what the mind wants him to do anymore, playing a decent game.
Yeah,
Lamapi and also running around in the outside channels. We can talk about all of that, but those two scrums and the effort by the forwards and the defensive effort by this side was really what won the day in the end.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, if excuse me to all the New Zealand watchers here now, but I have to ask Paul now. I mean, Brad Shields, is that a future England player? He certainly looks like it.
He is certainly looking like it. And one of the things that actually I want to do next week, not this week, is so for everyone who's watching, I do a show on a Wednesday night at 8 p.m. purely for my Patreons who pay me money, who donate money to me because they like what I do and because they know that my setup really does need some cash. I need to get some new computers. So I'm very, very much grateful to them. And in return, what I do is I do a video for them every Wednesday night. So next week, what I want to do is get Herman onto that show, and we're going to talk about the England back row issues and whether Brad Shields is the answer at number 6. So if you want to watch that show, look down in the notes below because there'll be a link down there, how to become a Patreon, and you can get that special show where Herman and I are going to have a chat next Wednesday, hopefully. And I've not told him about this yet, so this is news to him. So, but that'll be a special show.
But I mean, I thought even the Australian commentators were mentioning, look, there's Brad Shields, who, by the way, is going to play for England soon. Did you?
And with England's woes in the Six Nations, I can see where they're coming from.
Oh yeah. I mean,
but anyway,
the Six Nations, yeah. So I will say
we will talk about that next week.
Yeah.
This week when we're reviewing Super Rugby, and the next one up comes the Blues versus the Sharks, and this one was painful to watch as a Blues supporter.
Yeah, I feel
this is the biggest Sharks score against the Blues ever. And yes, Andre, if you have any comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will bring them up, because Andre is a friend of mine who is a Sharks supporter, who's now in Auckland. Tries 6-all, and yet the Blues somehow still managed to lose by 23 points, even though they scored as many tries. That's a massive margin when you consider both sides have scored tries. And this comes down to, obviously, penalties at the end of the day. What amazed me, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, was that the Sharks were kicking sticks from start to finish. Even when they were 20, or even when they were sort of 15 or 18 points up towards the end, when they could have been chasing for a try bonus point by going to the corner, they didn't. They still kicked sticks and took the 3, which to me was puzzling.
I thought it was a brilliant tactics, actually. First of all, considering, I mean, Robert Duprez kicking was top notch. You know, it was 13 from 13.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, it was 13 from 13. And
lots from lots.
Lots from lots, yes. Now with Blues obviously being quite fragile when it comes to the mental department, you know, it's the scoreboard pressure on the Blues. That's good stuff, you know. It's always going to work against them because it takes so little to knock them off. So I thought we got it completely right by Sharks. And you waste some time to, you know, keep the clock ticking. You're in the lead.
Well, Andre and I'm sorry, I'm going to probably mispronounce his name, but Conk in the live chat, Blues were outsmarted on the night and Blues tactically outplayed. So both saying the same sort of thing. Personally, but I thought that there were times when the Sharks should have done. So when they were in front 7:26 before half time, or 7:23, something like that, you're two. Sorry?
26-7 was in halftime, I think.
No. It was.
Yeah. 26-7 in halftime.
26-7 at halftime. So so at 7:23, you're 2 scores clear, well, over 2 scores clear, and you kick sticks to go 26-7 up rather than 23-7 up. At that point, I would have said, if you go for the corner there and you score that try and you go in 37 up, the game's over. You really do kill it off. And so I thought that they lacked that killer instinct in that situation. They had a plan and they were very rigid and stuck to it. I think they should have been a bit more flexible and decided at that point, here's where we go for the juggler. You would not have seen a Kiwi side still kicking sticks when they're 2 points up.
No, obviously not. But when you for any South African or Australian team playing in New Zealand to get a win there, you know, you're not going to play like a Kiwi side to beat a Kiwi side. That's not the way to do it. Maybe so.
So Andre was talking about the error rate and penalty rate, and that's exactly the stats I've got written down here. So at half time, the turnovers were 7 for the Blues, 4 for the Sharks, 6 penalties for the Blues, whereas the Sharks only gave up 2. So at half time, and that just kept going, because at the end of the game, turnovers was 17-13. So the Blues kept on giving up, and the penalties were 10-6. 7 of those were kicked for points. So not only were the Blues giving up penalties, but they were giving up penalties in the wrong part of the pitch. And desperate message for desperate times, says Andre. And I think he's probably referring to the fact that the Sharks kept on kicking those 3, where they really, this was a must-win game for both these sides, and the Sharks got that must-win.
Yeah. But I saw another stat that from a Shark supporter that he meant that this was in no way a surprise. I think from the 12 last meetings between Shark and Blues in Super Rugby, the Sharks have won 11.
Yep, 11 out of 12. Wow, I knew it was quite a few of them. I didn't realize it was that many. And one of the points that was being made was that a lot of those games were in New Zealand, were on the North Shore in Albany, not at Eden Park. So it's very rare that the Blues lose at Eden Park to overseas teams.
Well,
Some
to be
other
fair on the Sharks, they didn't play at Eden Park, so they can't beat.
that is very true. You can only play the team that's in front of you in the ground that you're given. Some other things that show you that that the Blues tried to play too much rugby. The Blues made 203 passes to 98 by the Sharks for 155 runs. So they passed more than they ran by about, was it 4-3? Whereas if you look at the Sharks, they passed for 98 times and ran for 95 times. They really weren't trying to do anything too special. That was they kept it close, pick and goes, one out rugby, and let the Blues basically make mistakes and overplay.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened, and they won it. There was that yellow card where the Blues really showed what they could do and scored 3 tries in 10 minutes to take the lead 28-26. 2 of those tries, though, were using the space where that man would have been. So it was very much the Blues scored the tries because of the yellow card, not because they were playing great rugby and had an extra man. And then Fiane, who for some reason the commentators really thought he was playing well, but for me, he gave 2 very strange cross-field kicks, which allowed the Sharks to get field position, and they came back and scored 27 unanswered points, basically to steal the game. And that would then it was all over. The Blues, there was a late flurry of tries for both sides towards the end, but the Blues pulled out to 28, pulled out that 2-point lead, and then gave up 27 unanswered points. And yeah, they fully deserved to lose.
Yeah. I mean, but the worrying sign for me about the Blues is that, especially when you are down with that margin at halftime, and then you get that flush of tries, 3 on the road, take back the lead right in the start of the second half. That usually means in most games, like, oh, right, now Blues going to cruise it. But to drop it from that position when you have come back and really punish your opponents and like taking the momentum and then just dropping it so completely again, that tells me that there are serious concern in the Blues. And I have to be fair also and say, I mean, I like Tana Umaga a lot as a player, and he seems to be a very good guy. Every time I see him, like, especially when I was a player and talking, but some of the comments he made after the game this time, like, really made like, yeah, you sure about that, Tana? Like, he said something like, there was nothing really wrong about the game plan. It was all about execution. There was nothing wrong with the effort. You just have to take away the mistakes. And I was like, to me, it almost sounded like Alistair Coetzee last year when he was explaining another Springbok, because you remember it was never Alistair Coetzee's fault. Never. It was and a little bit same thing Tana is telling here, like, nothing wrong with the game plan. Okay. Nothing, and also said it's nothing wrong with the structures. So sort of meaning I do nothing wrong. It's them. It's the players.
Andre says that the Blues are the Sharks' bunny team, and yes, they are. But to give Tanner some credit, we saw against the Lions where it came off. Now, they got lucky there because the Lions could have had a late try that was a knock-on. And yes, to me, they are trying too much. They're trying to be too much like the Canes or the Highlanders, and they're not. They just aren't pulling it off. They really need to change their entire approach and just become difficult to beat. They just want to become much more Crusaders-like and just shut up shop and go, right, we may score no points, but we're going to make sure that you have to fight for every point you score. And at the moment, they're not doing that. At the moment, they're playing fast and free, and it's fun to watch. It's fun to play when it works. It's really infuriating when it doesn't, and it doesn't 90% of the time, and that's the problem.
Yeah,
now,
for me, it's too much talk about like expressing yourself on the field. They should concern a lot more about expressing themselves on the scoreboard, not on the field.
A very good point. Anyway, we've pretty much run out of time, and we're only halfway through. So after that, we followed that up with the Brumbies versus the Waratahs. And as so often happens when you watch one of these, this one was littered with errors, really. The Tars had the upper hand, but turned the ball over far too often. They turned the ball over 19 times during that game. The Brumbies struggled at the breakdown to break down the Tars' defence. And basically, this came down to 2 moments with Naravoro that won the game.
Henry Spate was it who gave him like a free lane for the first try. Like, here you go, but mate, that's a try line. Have a run.
Yeah, Henry Spate got himself put on his heels far too often, and I can see why you'd be hesitant to tackle Naravoro.
Yeah.
He is an extremely large man. Let's make no bones about it. He's also quick and he's also skillful. As well. He's not just a large man. He's also a skillful man. But so I can understand why you'd be a bit hesitant. But if you are hesitant, then you're just going to, you're just going to put yourself into trouble against him. In all honesty, this one, the Tars should have been out of sight. I mean, they made 5 clean breaks. Sorry, they made the Brumbies made 5 clean breaks to the 11 by the Tars. It was just those turnovers, making 10 more turnovers, and also the fact that Foley couldn't hit the side of a barn if he tried.
Points, huh? 11 points, the boot he missed.
I can't remember how many it was, but yes, 11 makes it sense. And I think whereas the Brumbies left out something like 3 or 2 points out there. Yeah. So it should have been something closer to 20 to 35 and been all over. Whereas actually at 17-24, there was the opportunity there for the Brumbies to get one more score and draw the game. But they should never have been in this one. And you've got to wonder that whilst it looked, we saw some improvement last weekend with putting Leofano to 12 and bringing Herrera, I think it is, in at 10. I've forgotten how to pronounce his name. But yeah, they're still just looking fairly toothless in attack.
Yeah, Brumbies is like, last year we had a pretty solid forward play, and that way we could grind the games. And you could say this game was also kind of a grind, but as you said before, the only reason why it was close was because the Waratahs were making mistakes with the kicking and with some poor handling. So, and it seems like Brumbies is looking for like a new way of playing. They try to be a little bit more enterprising, but it's not coming off at all. And by doing this, they lost some of the grit in the forward pack too. Even though Pocock was back and was actually looking pretty good, you know. I mean, for being away this long from Super Rugby, he was, he's still quality. But for me, the big takeaway from the game would probably be to give props to the Tars. I'm not saying they're the finished article by any means, but if you compare this to the 2 last season, there's a lot more grit and steel in Tars this year. You can clearly see that they're putting a lot more effort in just trying to do the hard yards and the dirty work a lot more, because they were atrocious many times last year. We just stopped playing. Remember, like a 20-30 minutes. I mean,
that's to be fair to the Tars, yes, we've seen them the first game that they played, they won with a very late try. The second game they went over to the Sharks, they drew with a very late try or very late kick penalties. Either way, it was very, very late scores. Against the Jaguares, another very late try denied them the try bonus point. The Waratahs are a team that will play the full 85 minutes. There's no two ways about it, and that's not some, as you say, that's not something you've seen from them in previous years, and that has been a big step up this year for them. Andre says the Brumbies have been disappointed. He said he couldn't even bring himself to watch this one. Another snorathon. Cuban Pete suggests that the Crusaders versus Lions is the biggest snooze fest of the round, and we will get onto that one soon. But before we get onto that one, we have the all South African affair of the Bulls versus the Stormers. This was the Stormers' first game against South African opposition, amazingly enough. They played the Jaguares in their conference before. And we should also pay respect to Andre Strauss, who celebrated becoming South Africa's most capped Super Rugby player in this game. And he also picked up a hat-trick of tries.
He didn't get the man of the match. I mean, come on. How they're gonna, once you give a man of the match, gotta have a heart of stone, you know. I mean, if you're a hooker and score a hat-trick on, like, when you, at the same time as you're breaking, as you said, the Super Rugby appearance record, and you don't get the man of the match.
Who was man of the match? Sorry, I missed that.
It was another forward who got it, but I mean, there were many forwards in the Bulls that were good, but come on. I mean,
so the result in this one was 33 points to the Bulls, 23 to the Stormers in this one. But it was a very bitty game, I felt, with a lot of turnovers by both the sides. Ended up being 16 turnovers by the Bulls and 17 by the Stormers. This was, both of them sort of struggled to get any continuity going.
Yeah, I agree. But I was a bit surprised because Bulls just came back from the tours and they had looked pretty poor, and actually Stormers I felt that has been like improving for most of the season. You know, I mean, I still like what I see with the Stormers, but this was not a step backwards, but not a huge step backwards at least, but a small step backwards maybe. So I was a little bit surprised that the Bulls actually could win this game because they were not that impressive, the Bulls. But I mean, a lot of forwards in the Bulls were very good, but this one player I would give an extra shout out was probably to Pollard. I say this was his best game at 10 I've seen in this season, and probably from it I saw him last season too. He didn't play that much last season, but that looks very promising for the Springboks for sure.
Absolutely, the Stormers have been putting together a good forward effort. I mean, that's what beat the Hurricanes in round one, but sorry, by the Bulls. And Andre says the Bulls are turning into a decent side at home under Mitchell. And I think he has done a lot of work with those forwards in their confidence to play with the ball. There's only so much that you can actually teach people new skills, but you can give people's confidence to say, no, I know you can do it. Off you go and show me during a game because I know you can do it in practice. Please show me. Whereas I think a lot of these forwards wouldn't dare do some of the things they've been asked. They're actually showing themselves that they can do now. But this was another one of these ones where the Bulls did much more what we thought they would do, which was several penalties and close lineouts, which did actually come up with a try. Whereas the Stormers actually did kick for three. In contrast to the Bulls, who were going to the corner, which is interesting. I thought it was the right thing because they didn't look very fluent early on. So if you get an opportunity, get that scoreboard ticking over when you're not looking that fluid, especially when it only took 15 minutes for the Stormers to pick up a repeat infringement yellow card. That's pretty quick.
That's very quick.
And they did give up one try to a line-out maul, but otherwise they survived that yellow pretty well. In the first 20 minutes, it was 8 penalties to the Bulls and 12 to the Stormers, I think it was, which that's pretty much a penalty a minute. That's a lot of stoppages in play. It really was not. I say this was a very bitty game. To me, it doesn't look very. It was a hard game to watch in that sense.
No, I'll be honest. I didn't watch this game live. I watched it afterwards because I watched Munster Toulon, and when I rewatched it, I recorded it, and I did a lot of fast forward while watching it.
The other controversial thing was the second yellow card, which I just don't understand how this could be a yellow card. The player goes down, the maul goes over him. We can clearly see the player that makes contact with his head with the boot is looking upwards and forwards. He's not looking where the boot's going. How is he supposed to know there's anybody under? There shouldn't be somebody underneath his feet. How is he supposed to know that player's there? And the player, if you're going to lie under a ruck and the ruck is going over you, put your arms over your head. Protect yourself. Don't just sit there waiting to be kicked. I think the other guy should be yellow carded for being stupid, personally. If you're not going to put your arms over your head and protect your own head when there's a bunch of people walking over the top of you, you deserve what you get.
Yeah, then it gets a bit farcical. I mean, rugby with these laws, and I guess the thinking behind it that you're responsible for your actions. I mean, you can't claim that you weren't aware or not. But even in the law for the regular life, there are actually many cases where you can claim that you can actually breaking the law, but you can get away with it because you can prove that you were not aware of what you were doing. But in rugby, not so much.
It's interesting. It's good to get feedback from Andre saying that this is traditionally the biggest derby in South African rugby. That was never going to be.
It was a good crowd.
It was a good crowd, and he says, it's never going to be pretty in this one. It's one of those ones that becomes an arm wrestle, and that's what happened. And the home side won. And with my picks, I picked the home side twice. Once the Brumbies Waratahs and got it wrong, but I also picked it for Bulls Stormers for the same reason and got it right. So there we go. 50% hit rate on that one, which is not too bad. The final game of the round, and I just realised I put no notes in for this game for the Lions versus the Crusaders. So why don't you set me off, because you've already said that I checked my notes.
For me, this game was actually a huge disappointment. I was as a neutral viewer, I just wanted, because these were by far the two best teams last season, and both teams kicked off this season pretty good. Then I would say Lions have dropped and Crusaders might have dropped a little bit, but I still thought both of them, like the replayable final, like we're gonna really be up to it. And it was, I mean, how many handling errors did both teams do? I mean, it was just a never-ending story of a full game.
Yeah, I mean, we had 15 turnovers by both sides. So that's 30 turnovers conceded in this game, which showed up with a number of scrums. The Lions had 10 scrums. The Crusaders had 9, and that's a lot of scrums during a game. 19 scrums.
Yeah, but also, I mean, I thought in the second half, I thought Jakob Paper was resetting the scrum 15 times or something like that. He was also, I mean, he was so pedantic. So it was not only that, it was like it was a perfect storm to like ruin what should be an epic game. Instead, was, as one of the viewers said, a complete snooze fest. Like both teams were playing pretty bad, and then a referee on top of that being even worse. You know, it's not gonna get pretty.
No, it's not. And we saw an uncharacteristic Crusaders in that first half. They only made 64% of their tackles. Now, they only had to make 25 tackles, whereas the Lions were forced to make 68 tackles in that first half, making 79% of them. So the Lions tried to play a high-paced game. They were taking quick lineouts. They took a very quick drop 22 restart, which led to them getting into the Crusaders half in that half. But because they were, as we say, turning over the ball, not looking after it, kicking the ball away, and they made 14 kicks to 9 in that first half when they only had 37% of the possession. If you've not got possession, don't kick the ball away. If you're defending for that length of time, you're going to be more tired. Now, even when the opposition is playing at altitude and they're not used to it, it's a recipe for disaster. And to me, that was their problem here. They tried to play too much. They tried to play at pace, but but not being clinical. And then they didn't realise that actually you have to have the ball some of the time. You can't defend the whole time. And the Crusaders are not going to stick at 68% tackling. They finished the match at 84% tackling, which meant they pretty much made every single tackle in that second half. You're not going to see. So yeah, they missed 9 in that first half, and they missed only 18, I think it is total. So maybe they missed a few more, but they made 110 tackles. They had to make 3 times as many tackles in that second half, and they missed as many as they made in the first half. So clearly, you're not going to win if you're not going to be given the opportunities that the Crusaders gave them in there. But the Crusaders, that Lions defense was very good in the first half. The Lions made 5 clean breaks. The Crusaders, 63% possession, 71% territory, made 1 clean break.
Yeah, but
that whole first half. That's just.
But almost all of Crusaders' possession in the first half was actually inside Lions 22, because it started right away when they knocked down the kickoff, and as soon as the Lions could score a try, they knocked down the kickoff again, and I think it was 1 or 2 other kicks, and the Lions dropped it. So Crusaders didn't have to do any kind of structure play to get inside the 22. And I mean, Lions said, here you go, fam, have a ball.
Very true. And so one of the things you'll see from teams is generally they will kick to the left-hand side of the pitch, because that means the kicker, if you've got a right-footed kicker, it gives him a worse angle to exit from the 22. The Crusaders didn't do that. The Crusaders kicked to the right-hand side of the pitch because they knew there was there was a winger there who was very poor under the high ball, and he messed up twice in that first half on restarts. And that's the level of research that's going into these games. If you see a team kick right rather than left, pay attention to that, because they've noticed a player is weak under the high ball, and that's what you're going to see there. Generally, it'll probably be a winger, because most of the forwards will move over that side as it becomes obvious that they're going to kick that way. But that's the kind of thing that is going on there, and yeah, the Crusaders did their homework.
Yeah, but I want to add thing also about when you mentioned exit kicks again here, how the Lions use that, but we forgot to mention about the Sharks. Kervin Bosch, his exit kicks are next level. Damn, you see them? It's like 70, 80 meters. Boom. If you have a player like that, you then by all means kick it away.
But yeah, Bosch had a good game, and he's shown that he is quality. It's going to be interesting to see whether he's willing to accept to see himself as a fullback, or whether he sees himself as a fly half and therefore will move and try and get 10. There are sometimes you get players. I mean, Patrick Lambie is another one that initially was put at fullback, but was never comfortable there and always wanted to play 10. I'm not sure how comfortable Bosch is playing at fullback. From what I've seen previously, I think he wants to be a 10, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll accept that and sit back there.
I think we should consider him like a kind of a Bowden Barrett project right now, and should probably in the Springboks picture at least. He seems to be like the perfect impact player to throw in with that kind of speed and also with that kind of kicks. You can really change things around in the last 20-30 minutes. And he has for sure the same kind of speed as Bowden Barrett. Damn, he's quick.
Yes, and I've not got the stats up in front of me, but I remember, he made one of the most meters in that game. I do like Andre's point here. This game was like Joshua Parker fight. So much promise and nothing happened. Now, I'm not a boxing fan, so I didn't actually watch that fight. But from what I hear, it was all done at arm's length, and the referee stopped anybody getting close to each other. Never mind actually hitting each other. The Crusaders are such a smart team on the field, says Andre, and that's very true. They are, and that's kind of what we expect. And they saw it out, and I've not, and they won the game at 8-14. So it wasn't a big game. And as you say, a lot of people were disappointed by the performances of both sides. Really, the Crusaders just the Lions defended extremely well, but could never hold on to the ball, and the Crusaders just failed to break them down, and they just did enough. Also, I mean, the Crusaders had injury issues as well. They lost Crotty at half time. They then lost Goodhue on the hour mark. And when you're replacing Crotty by Matiele, who played a fantastic game on the wing.
He was probably the game changer.
Possibly was, probably the game changer. And then you replace Goodhue with Delaney, who is an aging fly half. Let's be honest. You've suddenly, when you're playing with no centres on the pitch, then you are going to change your style and kick deep and make the Lions play, because when Tumanavalu can play centre, and he stepped in and did very well, but it's not the same as having Crotty and Goodhue, who potentially could be the All Black centre partnership at some point this season.
But I guess Lions got to kick themselves on the video review today. I mean, Crusaders was there for the taking. You will not get the better chance to beat the Crusaders than that.
Absolutely, I agree. The Lions should have made more of the fact that the Crusaders weren't tackling or failing to make their tackles in the first half, and then they should have noticed and been able to where the weakness was in that Crusaders lineup, because it definitely was there. Delaney only made one tackle and missed it. So I mean, you've got a guy on that who you know is susceptible, and how you couldn't have targeted him at some point just beggars belief. And yeah, the Lions really at the moment have got a confidence issue. They've got the players, they've got the skills, they've got the style of play, but they've got a confidence issue at the moment. And this is the real test for their new coach as to can he turn that around and can he motivate these players.
I mean, to use a comparison, I mean, the last couple of games, they remind me a little bit of the Blues, actually. If you know what I mean. I mean, it's a lot of talent then, but not in any way using it in an efficient way. And if you're looking like the Blues, that's when the alarm bell should start ringing.
Thank you very much. So thank you, Herman. I think we've overrun, as we quite often do, because it's such fun talking to you.
Don't mention that. I mean, our talk is such high quality. It's so good with the extra 20 minutes. The bonus.
There you go, guys. You've all got a bonus, so go down below and become Patreons and help me out so I can be doing this 24/7 for you. Wouldn't you just love that? I could just be online, apart from a little bit of sleep, just talking whatever rugby you want me to talk about. So and tomorrow night we have the Hash Rugby Chat. I think I've got Real Mike Pullman and Herman back on for that one. So at the moment I haven't got my questions lined up, so put questions in the comments below that you would like us to include in the Hash Rugby Chat, and we'll pick the best ones to talk about tomorrow night. Thank you, Herman. Let's do the finishing spiel. Face there to subscribe, or the red box down below. Latest video there. Give us 5-star review on your old podcasting app, and all of that kind of stuff. Love you, Spit fans. Thank you very much for being here, and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching.